Michigan Chillers by Johnathan Rand. Number 1. Mayhem on Mackinac Island. Chapter 1. My name is Sandy, and I'm 12. Sandra Jean Johnson, if you're really mad at me. But usually, everybody calls me Sandy, except my brother Tim. He calls me a lot of other dumb names. Names that he makes up mostly. Silly names, like Sandy Pandy and Sandra Jean, the Queen of Mean, which isn't fair because I'm not mean. And he calls me Munchkin. I hate that one the worst. It even sounds bad. Munchkin. I'm a year older than he is, but I'm about an inch shorter. Just because of that, he calls me Munchkin. I hate being called that. I have sandy blonde hair that fits my name perfectly. It's just past my shoulders. Once, I got it cut real short, but I didn't like it. Now I wear it long, sometimes in a ponytail or a French braid. Tim has hair a little darker than mine, only his is a lot shorter. Of all the seasons, I like summer the best. We live in Birmingham, Michigan, but we spend the whole summer on Mackinac Island. It's about a 5-hour drive from our house in Birmingham. Mackinac Island is an island in Lake Huron, which is one of the Great Lakes. Actually, in my opinion, it's bigger than a Great Lake. It's huge. Much bigger than any lake I've ever seen. It's so blue and beautiful that sometimes I never want to leave. There are lots of trees on the island, and I meet lots of cool new friends every summer. Every summer we have a blast. Except for this summer. This summer turned into a horrible nightmare. Worse than anything I could have ever imagined. But first, I guess I have to tell you about what went on last summer. That's when something really weird happened. Tim and I were at our Uncle Jerry's house. That's the house that we stay at on Mackinac Island. Mom and Dad and Tim and I stay with Uncle Jerry and Aunt Ruth. We stay from June all the way till school starts. It's so much fun. Aunt Ruth and Uncle Jerry are really nice. Their house is really big and pretty, and it's right near the water. They have a dock that extends way out over the lake. There's even a diving board. We swim a lot and go for boat rides. I asked Dad one day if I could ride my bike all around the footpath that goes around the island. It's a long way, like 8 miles or something. Okay, Dad told me, but Tim has to go with you.
Great.
I whispered, rolling my eyes. I did not want Tim to go with me. Tim was in his bedroom playing his Game Boy, but he heard us talking.
Hey, that sounds like fun.
He yelled. He ran into the living room where I was.
Let's go, Munchkin.
He said. Terrific.
Come on, Slowpoke.
He said, running out the door. He already had his helmet on. I wish I could do some things all by myself once in a while, but something was about to happen on the bike trip that made me glad that we were together. Really glad. Chapter 2. My bike is red. Tim's is blue. They're mountain bikes. We each got one for Christmas that year. Before that, we rented bikes from a store on the island. Anyway, we pedaled through downtown. I love downtown Mackinac Island. They don't allow cars on the island anywhere. We can ride our bikes in the middle of the street if we want to. But you have to watch out. There are lots of other people on bikes and even more people walking. But the thing you really have to watch out for is the horses. On Mackinac Island, horses are used to pull carriages and wagons. Since there are no cars, horses pull buggies around the island. The buggies and carriages carry everything from luggage to supplies to people. You can even go for a tour on a horse-drawn carriage if you want. But the best thing about downtown is the delicious aroma of sweet, tantalizing fudge. It's everywhere. Drifting out from the stores through open windows and doors, yum. I could eat fudge all day. You probably could too, if you stayed on Mackinac Island all summer.
Watch out!
I suddenly yelled at Tim. He wasn't watching where he was going, and he almost ran into a man pushing a cart. Tim swerved just in time. That was a close one. We rode through town and continued on the paved blacktop path that winds all around the island. It's a fun ride. You can see boats on the water and even the Michigan mainland in the distance. And seagulls. There are lots of seagulls whirling above and sitting near the shore. When we were about halfway around the island, Tim stopped.
I'm tired,
He said.
I need to rest.
He hopped off and laid his bike against a tree. He took his helmet off and set it on his bike seat. For the first time in my life, I think I actually agreed with him. I was tired too. I hopped off my bike and walked down to the water where Tim was. He was skipping rocks. I picked up a nice flat rock and let it fly. It skipped 15 times.
Show off.
Tim said, but he was just jealous. He knew he couldn't skip a rock 15 times if he tried. I felt proud. Suddenly, he turned and pointed.
Look at that,
he said. I turned, and I couldn't believe what I saw. I just couldn't. I had to get closer and get a better look. And that's what got us in trouble. Chapter 3. It was a man, a very small man, sitting in a great big tree. He had long gray hair that flowed over his shoulders and a long gray beard, and a tall, funny hat that was cone-shaped. The hat had silver and gold stars all over it. He was wearing a long white robe. Boy, did he look out of place on Mackinac Island, not to mention the fact that he was sitting in a tree. He looked like he was a magician or something. The tree he was sitting in was really old looking. It had a lot of long, black, spiny branches, like thin fingers, but no leaves. I was sure that the tree was dead.
Hello?
Tim shouted. He said it so loud and unexpectedly that I jumped. I hate when he does that. The sound must have scared the man because all of a sudden he disappeared. I caught a flash of his white robe, and it looked like he just ran along the branch and into the tree. Tim wanted to find out where he went.
Come on, Munchkin,
he said, running past our bikes and into the woods.
Quit calling me Munchkin,
I scolded, but I followed him anyway. The forest on the other side of the paved footpath was really thick. There was no trail, so I had to use my arms to pull branches and limbs out of the way. It was so thick that it was hard to walk. Trees grew close together, and there were vines and small branches everywhere. I accidentally walked into a spider web, and the thin, gooey string stuck to my face. Patooey! I hate spiders. I wiped the sticky web away from my hands and continued after Tim. But there was something that was very strange. We walked and walked, but we couldn't find the little old man. It was like he just disappeared completely. Weird. Tim stopped beneath the old tree, looking up and around.
I wonder where he went,
he said, gazing up into the branches. I stopped walking too. I looked up, peering through the dense limbs above, but I didn't see any sign of the man. I was really hoping I would be the first to see the tiny man again. Tim is always discovering new things first, but I wanted to be the first this time. The forest was very quiet. On Mackinac Island, you obviously don't hear any cars because there aren't any. Once in a while, you hear a plane overhead. But all we could hear in the forest were birds. Birds and crickets.
He couldn't just have disappeared in the thin air,
I said.
Maybe he disappeared into fat air,
Tim said, making fun of me.
There's no such thing as fat air,
I said. But then again, maybe there was. I didn't know for sure. We stared up into the trees for a few more seconds, but we didn't see any sign of the man with the white robe and funny hat.
Let's go back,
Tim said finally, taking one last look up into the trees. I followed his gaze, and we squinted up into the sky. No funny old man. He had disappeared. I turned and started to walk back to the footpath. My feet crunched on sticks and branches.
Ah!
Someone screamed in terror, and I recognized the voice instantly. That someone was Tim. Chapter 4. I stopped and spun around. Tim was staring at his feet. He was trying to walk, but he couldn't. His feet were trapped in quicksand. It was all the way up and over his ankles. Tim grabbed a branch and tried to pull himself out. He freed one foot, but the other one kept getting sucked further into the ground.
Help me, Munchkin,
he yelled. I would have been mad at him for calling me Munchkin, but I was too scared. Tim was in trouble, and I needed to help. I walked toward him, watching the ground carefully. I didn't want to step into the quicksand, too. I couldn't get real close to him because there was quicksand all around him. Dark, syrup-like mud was everywhere.
Hurry,
Tim said. He was sinking faster, and the brown goo was almost up to his knee. He held his other leg up in the air as far as he could so it wouldn't get stuck again. If he wasn't in so much danger, he would have looked very funny. I searched around and found a long stick.
Grab this!
I hollered, holding it out. Tim grabbed it, and I pulled with all my might. I'm not very big, but I'm really pretty strong. I think I'm even stronger than Tim. I pulled and pulled like never had before. I felt like I was in a game of tug-of-war, a dangerous game of tug-of-war. And if I didn't win, we were really going to be in trouble. But I wasn't going to lose. I was sure of it. I kept pulling harder and harder on the branch.
Hang on tight,
I told Tim.
Whatever you do, don't let go.
Finally, Tim's foot came free. He tumbled forward, and I lost my balance falling back. Tim landed on top of me.
Get off me, you goof.
I told him, but I was really glad that he was okay.
That was close, Munch,
he said. Munch. I think that's worse than being called Munchkin. He stood up, looking at his leg. His sneaker and the leg of his pants were covered with brown gunk all the way up to the knee.
Mom's gonna freak out,
He said, but I knew he was really glad that he got out of the quicksand. If he had been stuck for just a few more seconds, there's no telling what would have happened. But all of this happened last summer. What happened this summer was worse. Far worse.